World War II, the Third Army, under the command of General Patton, was pushing across France, heading on their way to Germany. General Patton got orders from his boss, General Eisenhower. He was directed to bypass Trier, as it would take at least 4 divisions to capture the city. General Patton messaged back, "Have taken Trier with 2 divisions. What do you want me to do? Give it back?" Alright, I have now quoted a dead general, and that will get all my former PME instructors off my back. Get to the meat and potatoes of what I'm talking about. If you want to know the truth of the Air Force, you got to find a senior master sergeant or lieutenant colonel who's got more than 18 years of service and ask him. I'm Jeff Dierdorf, and I'm here today to tell you some truth about the Air Force. Truth bomb number 1. Commander's calls are a waste of time. Anybody who's listening at a commander's call pretty much already knows what the commander's going to say. Everybody else doesn't care. A commander's call is the epitome of this meeting could have been an email. Truth bomb number 2. The Air Force already has a robust 360-degree feedback program. It's Facebook meme groups. If you want to figure out how your commander's call went, just log on. They'll tell you. Truth bomb number 3. Ultimate Frisbee is horrible unit PT.
That's correct.
The only ones who are actually playing are those who are fit, and the ones who actually need the exercise, they're standing in the middle of the field desperately hoping the Frisbee comes nowhere near them. No. We need to bring back dodgeball, where the actual threat of real pain motivates people to at least move a little bit. Truth bomb number 4. The Air Force treats buzzwords like solutions when they're not. Truth bomb 4.5. The original title of my TED Talk was Why the Air Force Sucks at Basketball. But evidently the Air Force doesn't want me to use the word sucks in a TED Talk. I'm like, man, that sucks. So I came up with some buzzwordy stuff, which sounds good, means nothing. So let me tell you about my favorite sound good, mean nothing buzzword. Disruptive thinker. I hate the term disruptive thinker. No. Hate's not strong enough. I ultra mega loathe the term disruptive thinker. Now, the Air Force may or may not have a definition out there of what a disruptive thinker is, but let me tell you what comes to mind when I think about a disruptive thinker. It's an officer, the kind who unironically wears ribbons with their short sleeve blues, and they write a peer-reviewed article for a strategic military periodical that is so contentious that 3 retired colonels write letters to the editor. That's not how we do things back in my day. Additionally, in today's Air Force lexicon, when somebody calls somebody a disruptive thinker, what they really mean is they're an a-hole. You guys will have to trust me on this because I've had a lot of people refer to me as a disruptive thinker. The real reason I hate disruptive thinker is because disruptive thinkers have accomplished nothing. We have disruptively thought the problem to death to no avail. What problem, you might ask? All of them. There is not a single problem in today's Air Force, big or small, that has not been completely thought through. It has not been admired from every angle, has not been talked about ad nauseum, and these problems still remain. Disruptive thinking has accomplished nothing. So here's what I want to do. I want to take that term disruptive thinking and I want to eat it right out of the Air Force vocabulary. And I want to replace it with disruptive doing. I want us to identify, to encourage, and to reward disruptive doers. I'm not going to spend time defining what a disruptive doer is, partly because it's self-explanatory, partly because whenever you define something, you constrain it to that definition, which kind of defeats the point of disruption in the first place. Rather, what I'm going to talk about is how do we make the transition from disruptive thinkers to disruptive doers. In theory, it's easy. Our airmen are absolutely incredible. All we need to do is let them act with the authorities that already come with the roles that they hold. But what makes this transition so easy, letting them act with the authorities they have, is also what makes it so hard. So the problem is that I will argue airmen at every level, their comfort zone has become disassociated with those authorities. Now, before all you young guys start thinking that this is going to be an okay boomer moment, where I rant about how kids these days are lazy, here's the twist.
It's not your fault.
It's not your fault. This disconnect between comfort and authorities is a leadership problem. And it makes sense if you think about it. It's human nature to go back to our comfort zone. It's human nature to stick to what we know. So as the Air Force promotes people, either in rank or in position, we carry with us those authorities that we executed so well that we earn that promotion. It's human nature. So now, when we hold those authorities, we pull those authorities up with them, not only do we prohibit our airmen from using those authorities to even execute regular responsibilities, let alone disrupt the status quo, but we cause other problems as well when we retain those authorities. Now, I am going to need a volunteer for this next demonstration on the challenges of retaining authorities, preferably a chief, but I'll take a lieutenant colonel or colonel if I have to. Anybody out there who wants to help make the Air Force better? Any chiefs out there that want to help make the Air Force better? Any chiefs whatsoever? Any chiefs? Anybody? Any out there?
I got it.
Okay, here we go. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Chief. All right, come on over here, please. All right, so for the purposes, a little further. For the purposes of this demonstration, let's pretend that Chief Val here is the greatest basketball player of all time, Michael Jordan. We are not accepting comments from the audience at this time. Michael Jordan, greatest of all time. Now, because I am not an Air Force nerd, senior NCO, who's studied his bio, I'm going to have to make some assumptions about your career. All right, I'm assuming that you were a decent airman, right? There is your airman authority. Give it a couple dribbles for me. Woo! That's not bad. In fact, that's so good. I'm going to send you to NCO Academy. Nice. Well done. Hey, you know what? Maybe NCOIC? Now, you don't have to dribble them all one time. Go ahead. Alternate through. There you go. Okay, still not bad. These things happen. It's all right. But hey, I was still pretty impressed, all right? You're the greatest basketball player of all time. Senior NCO. Well done. And you know what? Oh, my goodness. You're so good. It'll make you a chief. Woo! Now, don't try this because I don't have to chase basketballs all over the stage. But can you dribble 5 basketballs at once? You can't? I bet you can. Let me show you. All right. Chief, sir, right there in the front row. Pretend you're one of Chief's troops. All right. See you over there on the edge. And all right, I see camera people there, right there, front row. Sir, one more. We're gonna go over this way. Hopefully, I do not destroy the projector there. All right. Can you dribble 5 basketballs? Oh my goodness, look at that. Give him a hand. He's dribbling 5 basketballs. You guys don't mind you pass basketballs back to start top in front. Here's what I love about that demonstration. When he sent those basketballs out, I saw a couple folks dribbling lefty, a couple folks dribbling righty. Some got super fancy with their crossovers. Everybody dribbled in the way that they saw best. Now what else is kind of cool about that is when these people got that basketball, they instinctively knew what to do with it. All right? A couple before we even gave the command started to dribble. Our airmen will be just like that with authorities. They instinctively know what to do when they're given an authority. They're going to dribble it. And they're going to dribble in the way that they best see fit. Now let me give you a couple vignettes of successful disruptive doing to try to cage your eyes on what exactly I'm talking about. In fact, let me first give you a demonstration of disruptive doing. There is absolutely nothing that requires me to call them vignettes. It's a fancy term. I'm not a fancy person. There's no reg. I'm not even French. All right, so I'm just going to call you stories. Let me tell you a couple stories. Stationed in Germany one time, and my section was responsible for airlift around Europe and Africa. And we had to present a snapshot of the airlift status to the generals on a bi-weekly basis. Building this presentation took about 6 to 8 hours. We had to call the outstations to get all the numbers and whatnot. It was a laborious process. Anyways, the new staff sergeant comes into the section. It's his turn. I assign him the job. I do sarcastically mention, though, that that information stays in the general's brain just long enough for him to mutter, "Okay, next slide." Anyways, I swing back by about an hour later to see how he's doing. Tells me he's done. I'm like, "You're done. How are you done already?" He actually used the planning numbers that are about 95% accurate versus calling all the outstations to get the actual execution numbers. Like, "Hey, Sergeant, that's not good enough. We cannot put information in front of a general where they think that it's completely accurate when it's not." He pointed to one word that he added at the top of the slide: approximate. But you can't. But what? You know what? Awesome. That sergeant used his authorities. He presented the information he needed to, and he did it in a way that disrupted the status quo. Another time, there was a C-130 that had a maintenance issue, and it broke down in a very austere location in Africa. And various diplomatic clearance challenges existed, so it was going to be 10 days before you could get a part down there. Having a C-130 broke in Africa for 10 days, this is bad. So I got to go and I got to brief my boss, which leads to me briefing my boss's boss, and so on and so forth, all the way up the chain. There are a lot of grumpy people going on right now. I get back to my office a couple hours later, and my tech sergeant, who's been working this process, tells me, "Actually, sir, we're going to have that aircraft back up in 36 hours versus 10 days. I'm like, whew, that's good. How'd you do it? He's like, "Oh, well, I called one of my counterparts in the French Air Force. They got a base a couple hours down the road, and there's a cargo plane leaving that base that happens to be going to that same austere location in Africa, and it leaves tomorrow." I'm like, "This is freaking great. Let me run this up the chain. What do you need from me to make this happen?" He gets a weird look on his face, and he's like, "You know, sir, I called the maintenance group 2 hours ago. They should be getting to the French Air Force Base in the next 30 minutes or so." Like, hold on, you just engaged in an international agreement with a separate country? But you can't, but what, you know? Awesome. This tech sergeant uses authority to make the mission happen. He disrupted the status quo. He called a separate country to fix a problem. And my favorite part of that story is that that tech sergeant actually had an OTS application he was working on at the time, and that one act of disruptive doing directly led to a 3-star interview and a 3-star endorsement. Tech sergeant is now a 2nd lieutenant. Downgraded prestige, but you can't argue with the paycheck. It also goes to show, though, that senior leaders have an appetite for disruption, especially when it pushes the mission forward. So leaders, it's spring cleaning time. We need to go to the garage where we store all of those old authorities. We need to take that authority, and we need to let it go. Whether that calls to mind Maverick and Goose, or whether you have a Disney song stuck in your head, doesn't matter. You just gotta let it go. We need to proactively and intentionally take those authorities and place them at the right level with the right people. There's the saying, start with why. I'm sure you guys have all heard that. I'm gonna finish with why. I'm gonna close with why here. We as the Air Force need to learn to pass the ball. If we don't pass the ball, we're never going to be able to identify the young talent. Now, I use the analogy of basketball, but it holds true for any sport or activity. If you don't pass the ball, you never get an opportunity to identify your next superstars. You don't give them a chance to grow. You don't give them a chance to shine. And if we as the Air Force cannot identify our next generation of superstars, we're going to be just like any other big market team that can't compete for a championship. And I desperately don't want our Air Force to become the Dallas Cowboys.